Welcome back, dear friends, to another exciting episode of the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. We are on part 9, part 2. And without any further ado, we'll have our opening prayer. Thank you so much. O Lord, my God and my haven in my distress, my shield and my shelter in my woes, my asylum and refuge in time of need, and in my loneliness, my companion. In my anguish, my solace, and in my solitude, a loving friend. The remover of the pangs of my sorrows and the pardoner of my sins. Wholly unto thee do I turn, fervently imploring thee with all my heart, my mind, and my tongue to shield me from all that runs counter to thy will in this, the cycle of thy divine unity, and to cleanse me of all defilement that will hinder me from seeking stainless and unsullied the shade of the tree of thy grace. Have mercy, O Lord, on the feeble, make whole the sick, and quench the burning thirst. Gladden the bosom wherein the fire of thy love doth smolder, and set it aglow with the flame of thy celestial love and spirit. Robe the tabernacles of divine unity with the vesture of holiness, and set upon my head the crown of thy favor. Illumine my face with the radiance of the orb of thy bounty, and graciously aid me in ministering at thy holy threshold. Make my heart overflow with love for thy creatures, and grant that I may become the sign of thy mercy and token of thy grace, the promoter of concord among thy loved ones, devoted unto thee, uttering thy commemoration and forgetful of self, but ever mindful of what is thine. O God, my God, stay not from me the gentle gales of thy pardon and grace, and deprive me not of the well springs of thine aid and favor. 'Neath the shade of thy protecting wings, let me nestle, and cast upon me the glance of thine all-protecting eye. Loose my tongue to laud thy name amidst thy people, that my voice may be raised in great assemblies, and from my lips may stream the flood of thy praise. Thou art in all truth, the gracious, the glorified, the mighty, the omnipotent. Abdul Baha.
If I may, Ehsan John.
Yes.
Mrs. Nakhjavani, in a book she's written in tribute to Amatul Baha Ruhiya Khanum, the Guardian had asked Ruhiya Khanum to memorize this prayer and recite this prayer every day.
Wow.
So, yes, I knew that too.
Thank you. Yes, this was the most favorite prayer of the beloved Guardian Shoaib Effendi. This was, and you can find that reference January 1925 in the Baha'i News. So, just I wanted to share that with the friends. Yes, Miss Yuda, please.
Under what section do I find this prayer?
Okay, I will pull that up for you. This is what section? It is under nearness to God.
Okay. Thank
or
you.
it's if you go to BahaiPrayers.org, it's the seventh. It's called BahaiPrayers.org/assist7.htm. So assist7.htm. So it's the seventh. That's what it's called. I guess it's the seventh under assistance prayers also. So that's the one that they put it, assist7.htm. Okay, so let's get back into it, dear friends. I'm so excited to be here, to be with you guys. So Tonight, we're going to re-explore part 9. And part 9 is the paragraphs that we were studying last time, and paragraphs 21 through 24. Okay, and I need to make sure everyone is in the room, because every so often someone is trying to get in, and I want to make sure everyone is in the room. Okay, we're good. Excellent. Okay, and full screen it in a second. So we covered paragraphs 21 through 23, and I just want to recap paragraph 24, okay? So I'm going to full screen it. We're going to reread paragraph 24. And you're like, Esa, we read this last time. What are you doing? But we're going to reread this because it was 2 weeks ago, and this is a very important paragraph. This is on the power, the creative power of the word of God, okay? So we're going to reread this paragraph, and then we're going to study it, okay? So let me read this paragraph for you and also explain what the first word means. There was like, Ehsan, I don't know what expatiating means. It's a hard word, okay? Expatiating, the first word in this paragraph 24. And if you're like, Ehsan, I'm trying to follow along in my book, okay? Where are we? We're starting, it's on page 107, okay? Page 107, if you have the World Order of Baha'u'lláh, okay? That's where we are. Okay, it starts off expatiating on the forces latent in his revelation. Okay, there we are. So expatiating means to read, to speak, or to write in great detail. That's what it means. So this is Baha'u'lláh. Expatiating on the forces latent in his revelation, Baha'u'lláh reveals the following. Through the movement of our pen of glory, we have, at the bidding of the omnipotent ordainer, breathed a new life into every human frame and instilled into every word a fresh potency. All created things proclaim the evidences of this worldwide regeneration. This is, he adds, the most great, the most joyful tidings imparted by the pen of this wronged one to mankind. How great, he in another passage exclaims, is the cause. How staggering the weight of its message. This is the day of which it hath been said, O my son.
Okay.
Sorry? Oh, no problem at all. Okay. O my son, verily God will bring everything to light, though it were but the weight of a grain of a mustard seed, and hidden in a rock, or in the heavens, or in the earth. For God is subtle, informed of all, by the righteousness of the one true God. If one speck of a jewel be lost and buried beneath a mountain of stones, and lie hidden beyond the seven seas, the hand of omnipotence will assuredly reveal it in this day, pure and cleansed from dross. He that partaketh of the waters of my revelation will taste all the incorruptible delights ordained by God, from the beginning that hath no beginning to the end that hath no end. Every single letter proceeding from our mouth is endowed with such regenerative power as to enable it to bring into existence a new creation, a creation the magnitude of which is inscrutable to all save God. He verily hath knowledge of all things. It is in our power, should we wish it, to enable a speck of floating dust to generate in less than the twinkling of an eye suns of infinite, of unimaginable splendor, to cause a dewdrop to develop into vast and numberless oceans, to infuse into every letter such a force as to empower it to unfold all the knowledge of past and future ages. We are possessed of such power, which, if brought to light, will transmute the most deadly of poisons into a panacea of unfailing efficacy. This paragraph, so incredible, right? So incredible. The words of His Holiness Baha'u'lláh, talking about the creative force of the Word of God, the Word of God having this worldwide regeneration. How staggering the weight of its message, right? How creative power that it can, even at the weight of a grain of a mustard seed, can bring everything to light. Even if it was hidden, like in a rock, or such incredible. One speck of a jewel be lost and buried beneath a mountain of stones. He'll manage to bring it out. This is the power of this creative power of Baha'u'lláh in this day and age. Okay, so dear friends, we're going to jump to the study on this paragraph 24, okay? So we're going to pick back up where we were in our set. Okay. Here we are, dear friends, in paragraph 24, which we just read. The beloved guardian cites a number of statements from Baha'u'lláh on the regenerative power embedded in every letter uttered by Baha'u'lláh. Every word revealed by the manifestations of God is endowed with a creative power. The word is the outer form of the unlimited spiritual forces released through the revelation, and these forces affect the world of creation in two ways. There's actually a quote, it's in Copiousness, where His Holiness Baha'u'lláh says, every single word has 71 meanings. So the power of the word of God, is incredible. This is the creative force that is released by the power of the word. And so let's move. On the one hand, these forces influence the hearts of the believers. So this is one of the forces. It's influencing the hearts of the believers, nurturing and enhancing their spirit of faith, and result in spiritual growth as well as transformation. Remember, at the very heart of this revelation is what? Transformation. Remember Advent to Divine Justice? The entire purpose is transformation of the hearts, right? And if you remember this pivotal quote that I shared even through Advent to Divine Justice, coming from Copiousness, says, indicates that the object of every revelation from God is to effect a transformation in the whole character of mankind. A transformation that shall manifest itself both outwardly and inwardly, that shall affect both its inner life and external conditions. So this is one of the forces, the creative forces that has been released, which is to generate a transformation in the whole character of mankind, its inner life and external conditions. And here's a quote I wanted also said, chant the words of God and pondering over their meanings, transform them into actions. What a cool little quote, right? So it's not just like, hey, I'm saying my prayers, I'm chanting my prayers, I'm being a good Baha'i, come on, God, give me some mad props, it's not, that doesn't count. You can't just say I'm saying my prayers or reading the writings. Abdul Baha, he says, go further. He says, chant the words of God. That right? Then he says, ponder on it. So it's not just say your prayers. Ponder on it means meditate. What are you saying? Then transform those words into actions. It's, for example, here's a very simple example. Okay, very simple example. At the very heart and core of the Baha'i faith is the principle of the oneness of humanity. At the very, if someone says, Ehsan, what is unique about this faith, and what is the very heart meaning of what the Baha'i faith stands for. In the simplest answer, it would be, as a Baha'i, we stand for the fundamental principle of the oneness of humanity. There you go, okay? If that is the case, we not only read the writings and say the prayers in regards for the oneness of humanity, bringing about humanity to come together, we ponder and meditate on the words, and so that they become internalized in our heart by removing any form of prejudice, delving into our hearts, so that our eyes, our mind, our barrier, our inner life reflects that principle of the oneness of humanity. And then we transform it into actions, so that we ourselves go out of our way to stand up for the principle of oneness of humanity. We don't just, congregate around, per se, our own groups, cliques, or factions, or our own social norms. If we believe in the oneness of humanity, I will go out of my way to embrace everyone on this planet and say, by God, I love you. I want to be with you. I want to embrace you, whether they're black, white, red, tan, doesn't matter. We are all part of the family of man, and I love you. You're a creation of God, and that is the reality, and I want to get to know you, and this is about creating that veritable friendship. And it's not just about, hey, I really want to teach the Baha'i faith, so I want to get to know you so I can teach the faith. No. That's the least of it. The least of it. The most important thing is to connect hearts. The reality is, we will never have, create a Baha'i world if we have this undercurrent of trying to teach people. We have to have genuine love between people. Genuine love. If we create such a genuine love, the aspect of sharing the greatest jewel that have been gifted to us will naturally emerge. It will naturally emerge. So the reality is, this is the process. First, create such a space of love within your heart. A, do you love yourself? And more important, and do you love this faith? And how much more can you love this faith? So every day it should be like a fire. There's whole prayers about kindle the fire of thy love, right? And increase the heat and flame. And the way to increase the heat and flame of love is by not only reading the writings, but also learning and studying the example on life of the central figures. The central figures of the faith, we have to be knowledgeable about who and what and how they have lived. So these are ways that will increase our love. And not just the central figures, the great heroes and heroines of our faith, the teachers of our faith. What did they do? And why did they sacrifice so much in the pathway of their beloved? So the more that you get to know these, you can, per se, emulate to a degree, and hope that you can increase that flame of love in your own hearts. Okay? So this is about where knowledge can be translated into action. And then you're like, Ehsan, I'm just such a busy person, right? Or Ehsan, I don't know how to create an action plan. Everyone's action plan is different, okay? This is where you as an individual have to come up with your own individual plan of action. It might be a family plan of action. What can you as an individual or as a family do? Whether it's even having family devotionals together, having children's classes together, or even having a family teaching project together, whether it's teaching with your children or grandchildren, or doing something as a project, and then increasing that. And then it will increase in heat and flame, and your whole community will see, hey, that person's doing something. There's something different about going on over at Mary's house or at, at Saeed's house. What's going on? There's something different. And that is heat and flame. The devotional spirit has increased. You see what I'm saying? This is how it happens. And it's all because you are what? This is coming from Baha'u'lláh. What does he say? It's actually, I want to go to the quote itself. So I'm going to go back because it's in paragraph 24. I want to reread this because it's in paragraph 24. He says, he that partaketh of the waters of my revelation will taste all the incorruptible delights ordained by God from the beginning that have no beginning to the end that have no end. Why all of this will happen is because you are now partaking of that water of the revelation, and a transformation is setting in your inner life and translating into your external conditions because of you are consciously doing it. That's the difference. And you not only will your family notice that this happening, your community will start noticing a change in your behavior. And this is really what it means to be a Baha'i. It means starting this process of transformation. Just like exercise, it ain't easy. That's why the beloved guardian uses the word painstakingly. This process of change, the beloved guardian uses the word painstakingly. So it's not an easy thing, right? Just like exercise or dieting. That's why it's got the word die in it, diet. No one likes dieting. So the process is painstakingly, okay? It's not like, you never hear the word happy it, it's no one's happy about dieting. That's why it's diet. So just to emphasize, 3 words out of the 4 words is death. You're killing yourself to do it. So it's suffering, okay? And that's my point. This transformation is not easy, but the whole community will see this happening because you are now flexing your spiritual muscles. There's going to be pain undergoing it, okay? That's all I wanted to say on that, okay? You all guys all know this. We went really in depth on this Advent to Divine Justice on this part, okay? Moving along, dear friends. The inner life of the soul. It is the attitude and the frame of mind, the thoughts, the motivations of an individual. The outer life, on the other hand, is the manifestation of the inner life in one's actions, the behavior, as well as the relationship of others. It is the translation of the attitudes and qualities into words and deeds. And a true Baha'i is not just in his outer behavior. Okay, it's not a true Baha'i is inner life as well as external conditions. That's why, when we're studying Advent of Divine Justice, the transformation of the life is rectitude of conduct, chaste and holy life, and freedom from racial prejudices. And actually, all 3 are really about the transformation of the inner life. And through the transformation of the inner life, the external, character, the external conditions will be transformed. So this is primarily the entire faith. And when I say the entire faith, I'm not talking about just the Baha'i faith. The entire faith of God, whether it's Christianity, Islam, is all about the transformation of the inner life, which will bring about the transformation of the external conditions. Now, we're going to talk about another element of this creative power of the word. At the same time, the word of God releases spiritual forces. So the first element is the spiritual forces that bring about a transformation and change in humanity. But the other power of the Word of God is these spiritual forces set in motion various processes towards attaining the plan of God. Okay? This is the second aspect of the Word of God. The beloved guardian refers to such processes as the two parallel processes of integration and disintegration, respectively, with the rising fortunes of God's infant faith and the sinking fortunes of the institutions of a declining civilization. So we're right now studying one of the major world order letters. This is the 6th out of the 7 world order letters in the world order of Baha'u'lláh. Now, the last letter is called the unfoldment of world civilization. It's the 7th, okay? And you're like, Ehsan, I haven't gotten down to read that one yet. So what's that one about? Okay, this one was written in 1936, okay? And in this one is addressing the pangs of a degenerate society. And also there's a whole section on the process of integration, process of disintegration, as well as the address of the coming and efflorescence of the institutions coming into the world. So this is really an incredible letter. There's whole sections on the collapse of the Christian institutions, signs of moral downfall, as well as the breakdown of political and economic structures. So these are really the major themes in the unfoldment of world civilization. But in that major letter, why I brought that up is because in that letter, written just after this letter, that is really the letter that really brings out this processes of integration and disintegration. The beloved guardian actually has a whole several pages dedicated to that. So I just wanted you to know that, so in the future, you could go to that and have a wider knowledge on these twin parallel processes. Okay, this is from Adib Tahirzadeh. We're going to be reading this. This is very interesting. And why I pulled this, because Adib Tahirzadeh in the Revelation of Baha'u'lláh just cites one example coming from the Kitab al-Ahdas, just one example of the incredible power of Baha'u'llah's creative word, okay? And so this is an incredible example, and Adib Tahirzadeh cites it. So here, I want to share this with you. He's, as the result of the commitment and endeavors of the believers and the spiritual impact of the processes set in motion, the mission destined for revelation from God is attained. Adib Tahirzadeh illustrates the creative power of the Word of God by observing the influence of just one injunction from Baha'u'lláh. So this is just one of the laws, one summoning of Baha'u'lláh in Kitab al-Ahdas. This is what Adib Tahirzadeh says. A careful study of the faith of Baha'u'lláh will demonstrate that the efficacy and potency of his words are unprecedented in the annals of mankind. We can already witness the creative power of the words of Baha'u'lláh within the present society. To cite one example, Baha'u'lláh wrote only a few lines in the Kitab al-Ahdas, enjoining upon his followers to establish in every town a house of justice. This is a spiritual assembly, at present known as the spiritual assembly. This injunction, written just over 100 years ago by a prisoner in Akka, exerted such an influence upon the hearts that thousands of men and women from all walks of life, of all colors and backgrounds, left their homes scattered throughout the world, pioneered to the most inhospitable posts of the globe, suffered many hardships and difficulties, sacrificed their substance and poured out their resources in order to establish these institutions. It's incredible. It's truly the power of just one line, a few words of Baha'u'lláh. What happened? How it shook so many people and moved. And you know, when it says the rocks will move, actually it makes you think, are we the rocks? You know, because we at times seem immovable. We don't get up or do anything, you know? And the reality is, you know, the rocks have been moving and going to great distances and sacrificing their lives and their resources, their substances to make this injunction. When Baha'u'lláh said, I want in every town a house of justice. This is a command coming from Baha'u'lláh. And look at how quickly, now, you know, you can go anywhere, any city almost, you know, most places you can find Baha'is. And this is an incredible occurrence. So there we are, dear friends, paragraphs 21 through 24. I didn't want to, there's so many examples of the power of the creative power of Baha'u'lláh. I didn't want to belabor it, but there we are. Any questions on that before we move to our next set? And this is going to be an exciting section where we're going to be looking at what does it mean as a true seeker. So this is our next set of paragraphs. Before we get there, do you have any questions or suggestions or learnings, experiences before we move on? All good? Let's do it. Excellent. Okay, here we go. Share screen. And we're here. All right. So this is our next, we're on now part 10 of the Exploring Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh course. These are, we're going to be covering paragraphs 25 through 27. These are the major themes. Becoming a true believer. This is a lifelong journey, right? This is not like, okay, yeah, I believe in Baha'u'lláh. Are you, but to be a true believer, there's requirements. There is things that you have to do. And so then in these paragraphs, the beloved guardian stresses the copiousness of his revelation, compares it to an ocean. And then this is such a cool language. And I can't wait for you guys to rehear this. The unassailable revelation. Cannot be even attacked. It cannot be assaulted. It's just unassailable. So this is going to be awesome. So let's get into it. Okay, here we go. Our first reader is, okay, let me get our first reader. Here we go. Zamruhi, you're going to be our first reader. As always, thank you so much. Here, paragraph 25.
Estimating the station of the true believer, he remarks, by the sorrows which afflict the beauty of the all-glorious, such is the station ordained for the true believer, that if to an extent smaller than a needle's eye, the glory of the station were to be unveiled to mankind, every beholder would be consumed away in his longing to attain it. For this reason, it had been decreed that in this earthly life, the full measure of the glory of his own station should remain concealed from the eyes of such a believer. If the veil be lifted, he similarly affirms, and the full glory of the station of those who have turned wholly towards God and in their love for him renounced the world, be made manifest, the entire creation would be dumbfounded.
Beautifully read. Thank you. Okay. Miss Yuda, could you read paragraph 26?
Stressing the superlative character of his revelation as compared with the dispensation preceding it, Baha'u'lláh makes the following affirmation. If all the people of the world be invested with the powers and attributes destined for the letters of the living, the Barb's chosen disciples, whose station is 10,000 times more glorious than any which the apostles of old have attained. And if they, one and all, should swift as the twinkling of an eye, hesitate to recognize the light of my revelation, their faith shall be of no avail, and they shall be accounted among the infidels. So tremendous is the outpouring of divine grace in this dispensation, that if mortal hands could be swift enough to record them within the space of a single day and night, there would stream verses of such number as to be equivalent of the whole of the Persian Bayan.
Beautifully read, Miss Yuda. Thank you. And paragraph 27. Riaz John, could you read this one for us?
The Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, paragraphs under study, paragraph 27. Give heed to my warning, ye people of Persia. He thus addresses his countrymen. If I be slain at your hands, God will assuredly raise up one who will fill the seat made vacant through my death. For such is God's method, carried into effect of old, and no change can ye find in God's mode of dealing. Should they attempt to conceal his light on the continent, he will assuredly rear his head in the midmost heart of the ocean, and raising his voice proclaim, I am the life giver of the world. And if they cast him into a darksome pit, they will find him seated on earth's loftiest heights, calling aloud to all mankind, lo, the desire of the world is come in his majesty, his sovereignty, his transcendent dominion. And if he be buried beneath the depths of the earth, his spirit, soaring to the apex of heaven, shall peal the summons. Behold ye the coming of the glory. Witness ye the kingdom of God, the most holy, the gracious, the all-powerful. Within the throat of this youth is yet another astounding statement. There lie prisoned accents which, if revealed to mankind to an extent smaller than a needle's eye, would suffice to cause every mountain to crumble, the leaves of the trees to be discolored, and their fruits to fall, would compel every head to bow down in worship, and every face to turn in adoration towards this omnipotent ruler who at sundry times and in diverse manners appeareth as a devouring flame, as a billowing ocean, as a radiant light, as a tree which, rooted in the soil of holiness, lifteth its branches and spreadeth out its limbs as far as and beyond the throne of deathless glory.
Excellently read, Riaz John. Thank you, thank you. So there we are, dear friends. These are paragraphs 25 through 27, okay? Let's do a quick recap because there's quite a lot in these paragraphs. Then we'll get into our study as usual. So paragraph 25, this is now the beloved guardian here. He's talking about the station of a true believer. We also see this throughout the writings of Baha'u'lláh, especially Kitab Iran. We see His Holiness Baha'u'lláh is in fact several pages where His Holiness Baha'u'lláh addresses is commonly known as, but it's not, is commonly known as the Tablet of the True Seeker, but it's part of Kitab Iran. So here, the beloved guardian is now talking about estimating the station of the true believer. This is the words of Baha'u'lláh. By the sorrows which afflict the beauty of the all-glorious, such is the station ordained for the true believer, that if to an extent smaller than a needle's eye. So interestingly, before we continue, twice in these paragraphs, it talks about a needle's eye. I guess they sewed a lot more back then, because I haven't seen a lot of people sewing these days. So here, twice they've had a reference to needle's eye, okay? So such is the station ordained for the true believer, that if to an extent smaller than a needle's eye, the glory of that station were to be unveiled to mankind, every beholder would be consumed away in his longing to attain it. For this reason, it hath been decreed that in this earthly life, the full measure of the glory of his own station should remain concealed from the eyes of such a believer. So Baha'u'lláh is saying, that station of a true believer shall remain concealed. Because if you even knew this to the extent of an eye of a needle, and I'm terrible at sewing, I can't even thread a needle. I can't even get the thread in a needle, because I can't see it. I have my glasses, whatever is the vision. But the point is, it's such a small hole. Baha'u'lláh says, even if you knew the station of what it means to be a true believer, you would be overwhelmed. You would be so consumed. And remember that word I said, gobsmacked. You would be overwhelmed. You would go into awe and wonderment, right? You would be decreed that in the earthly life, the full measure of the glory of his station should remain concealed from the eyes of such a believer. If the veil be lifted, if you could suddenly see what the station of a true believer is, if that veil be lifted, and the full glory of that station of those who have turned wholly towards God, and in their love for him renounced the world, be made manifest, the entire creation would be dumbfounded. Everything would stop. I mean, imagine everyone suddenly knew what the station was of someone. Imagine you truly knew what the station was of someone that was a true believer. Your whole life would be like, you would be so overwhelmed by that individual that you wouldn't be able to even carry on. This is what Baha'u'lláh is saying. You'll be dumbfounded, lost in an awe and wonderment. That's why Baha'u'lláh has put, per se, a veil in front of us so that we will be able to, per se, carry on with life. And we also have to reach that station. This is what Baha'u'lláh is saying. Reach that station. Work on yourself so that, what does he say? That you as an individual will reach that station and what is the requirements? He says, the full glory of the station where they have turned wholly towards God. Not, I've turned somewhat to God, I'm pretty good and I'm turning somewhat. It's, it doesn't say turned somewhat towards God. The Guardians picks this word on purpose, holy towards God, right? So that I wanted to emphasize that. Okay, now this is another amazing paragraph, stressing the superlative character of his revelation as compared with the dispensation preceding it. So who was the dispensation preceding Baha'u'llah? The Blessed Babs, right? So now here Baha'u'llah is comparing his revelation to the revelation of the Blessed Bab, okay? Baha'u'llah making this following affirmation. This is an incredible paragraph. He says, if all the peoples of the world be invested with the powers and attributes destined for the letters of the living. Now think about that. If everyone had the powers of the letters of the living, oh my God. The Bab's chosen disciples, whose station is 10,000 times more glorious than any which the apostles of old have attained. So 10,000 times more than, any one of those apostles is one letter of the living. It's incredible. And here it's not, this 10,000 number it means, it's a huge amount. It's not like mathematical. This is the symbolic language here, okay? So, but it means to be an enormous amount more in greater comparison than any of the chosen disciples prior, the apostles of old. And if, this is very important, here this Baha'u'llah is stating, and if they, one and all, should swift as the twinkling of an eye, hesitate to recognize the light of my revelation. Okay, so this is the word hesitate, okay? Hesitate is another word for vacillate, okay? It means that you're not sure. You're not quite sure. Hesitate, right? You don't have, what the word is iran, certitude. You don't have that faith. You don't have certitude. So if they have any sense of hesitation to recognize the light of my revelation, what happens? What happens to these individuals that have been invested with the powers of the letters of the living, which are 10,000 times greater than all the apostles prior? What happens? Their faith shall be of no avail, and they shall be accounted among the infidels. This is so powerful, okay? So it means don't falter in your faith. Reach that level of certitude. This is what His Holiness Baha'u'llah says. Dive into yourself. Dive into yourself. If you have hesitations, get rid of them. Prove the faith to yourself. Find out. Question. That's why there's a whole month in the faith called questions. If you have any sense of doubt, eradicate it. Read, search, study, deepen, explore. Reach that level of absolute certitude. That's why independent investigation of the truth. Study. And when you reach that level of certitude, by your deeds, by your faith, so shall your powers and blessings be, right? So it's how much faith do you have? How much reliance on Him do you have? So tremendous is this outpouring of divine grace in this dispensation that if mortal hands could be swift enough to record them within the space of a single day and night, there would stream verses of such number as to be equivalent to the whole of the Persian Bayan. I know we don't have copies of Persian Bayan authoritatively translated. There's translations and they're provisional translations. It's incredible, and also how fast and copiously that the Persian Bayan was revealed. But here Baha'u'llah says, I could reveal the whole thing, the whole Persian Bayan, within the space of a single day and a night. But he says the problem is human hands are not fast enough. This is the limit. The limitation is not the revelation. The limitation is the humanity cannot keep up with the revelation. So this is the power, the copiousness of this revelation, this outpouring coming from the source of sources. Then the paragraph 27. Now Baha'u'lláh says, give heed to my warning, ye people of Persia. This is the Blessed Bab, I apologize. He says, give heed to my warning, ye people of Persia. He's talking to the people of Persia. He thus addresses his countrymen. If I be slain at your hands. Oh, this is such a cool. I love this paragraph so much because listen to this, listen to these words. If I be slain at your hands, God will assuredly raise up one who will fill the seat made vacant through my death. For such is God's method carried into effect of old, and no change can ye find in God's mode of dealing. And should they attempt to conceal his light on the continent, he will assuredly rear his head in the midmost heart of the ocean, and raising his voice proclaim, I am the life giver of the world. And if they cast him into a darksome pit, they will find him seated on earth's loftiest heights, calling aloud to all mankind. And this happened, my dear friends. Think about it. Where did they put the Blessed Bab? In the heart of the most miserable mountain, Maku, right? Maku. Where is the moon? Literally means, where is the moon? Because there is no light in that mountain. And where is the shrine of the Bab? On top of the mountain. And every night, the lights of that shrine of the Bab is calling out to the world. Prayers are resonating around the world. And it says, if they cast me into a darksome pit, they will find me seated on earth's loftiest heights, calling aloud to all mankind, lo, the desire of the world is come in his majesty, his sovereignty, his transcendent dominion. And if he be buried beneath the depths of the earth, his spirit soaring to the apex of heaven shall peal the summons. Behold ye the coming of the glory. Witness ye the kingdom of God, the most holy, the gracious, the all-powerful. Within the throat of this youth, who is this youth? The Blessed Bab, right? The youth, manifestation of God. Within the throat of this youth is yet another astounding statement. There lie prisoned accents which, if revealed to mankind to an extent smaller than a needle's eye, there we are, the needle's eye, right? Would suffice to cause every mountain to crumble, the leaves of the trees to be discolored and their fruits to fall, would compel every head to bow down in worship and every face to turn in adoration towards this omnipotent ruler, who at sundry times and in diverse manners appeareth as a devouring flame, as a billowing ocean, as a radiant light, as the tree which rooted in the soil of holiness lifteth its branches and spreadeth out its limbs as far and beyond the throne of deathless glory. The descriptors, they're called adjectives in English. The descriptors of here talking about Baha'u'lláh are incredible in this last, sentence. Here, let's look at them, okay? So here, would compel every head to bow down in worship and every face to turn in adoration towards this omnipotent ruler, this Baha'u'lláh, who at sundry times and in diverse manners appeareth. So these are now, we're going to read these titles of Baha'u'lláh. Sometimes he appeareth as a devouring flame, as a billowing ocean, as a radiant light, and as the tree which rooted in the soil of holiness lifteth its branches and spreadeth out its limbs as far as beyond the throne of deathless glory. So sometimes he's a devouring flame. He comes, he's uprooting institutions, he's burning, and changing and transforming the whole world, changing everything. Devouring flame, vengeful and taking, what has happened to, the institutions of old? What have all changed from the monarchies to the institutions of Christendom to Islam, all these institutions of the past that people found so cannot change. That's just, a fiddler on the roof, tradition, right? They thought that's how it was, and nothing could change it, right? But lo and behold, manifestation of God appears, the sign of God on earth, and he has the power of a devouring flame. Devouring flame has the power of cleansing, purifying, right? It's not just to destroy, but has fire is a cleansing force. So he also has the power of a billowing ocean. Oceans are, you cannot wrap your head around an ocean, right? It's when you think of the word an ocean, it's just, you see it and the eye just goes and you cannot see the end of it. And when we think of an ocean, we think, oh, it's so deep. We cannot even go to the bottom of an ocean or swim to the depths. But this is a billowing ocean, one that is just vibrant with force and waves coming and excitement and all of that. This is how Baha'u'llah's ocean is. It is full of life, as well as full of those pearls of that we need to dive in and explore. And this is the billowing ocean of Baha'u'llah's revelation. He describes it as a radiant light, and as the tree which rooted in the soil of holiness lifteth its branches and spreadeth out its limbs as far as and beyond the throne of deathless glory. That is another super cool, and these are metaphors. So as he describes his revelation himself as this tree, and he is his revelation is this tree, and is just rooted in the tree of the soil of holiness. These are, I encourage when you're reading these, highlight these, think about these metaphors and how they tie to the personages of Baha'u'llah, because also that increases your heat and flame of your relationship with the Supreme Manifestation of God. So let's go into this further, deeper study. Let's look at this. In this section, the statements cited by the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, highlights the unparalleled character of the revelation of Baha'u'llah. They cover a variety of concepts, including the station of the true believer, as well as the significance of recognizing the station of Baha'u'llah, the copiousness of the revelation of Baha'u'llah, as well as the unassailable nature of his revelation. Remember, if you try to take him out on the land, he will suddenly spring up in the ocean. If you try to put him in a pit, he will spring, this is all what's cool language, right? So this is the unassailable, and you cannot do any form of attack on this revelation, because he will rise up. In paragraph 25, Baha'u'llah alludes to the high station of the true believer, the full measure of which is concealed in this earthly life for the protection of the followers. So it's really out of his love and compassion for humanity. Because if that even to a needle's eye was revealed, the words of the beloved guardian, we would be dumbfounded, right? So this is for the protection of his followers. The beloved guardian highlights the significance of recognizing the station of Baha'u'llah and the intensity of his revelation. This is part of the twin duties. The second paragraph, Kitab Ahdas, twin duties is recognition of him. So is first to recognize the manifestation and then observe his commandments, right? I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. Know thee is not just, I know Baha'u'llah, but it's that recognition of him, that to recognize him, and means also that to know thee and to worship thee is this relationship of love. To fall in love with your Lord. Okay, Farzad John, if you could read this one for us.
In the statements cited in paragraph 25, Baha'u'lláh illustrates the unsurpassed character of his revelation. In the statements cited in paragraph 26, Baha'u'lláh demonstrates the unassailable nature of his revelation.
Excellent. So one is addressing his unsurpassed character of his revelation. And this was in relation to the preceding revelation, the revelation of the Blessed Bob. And then in paragraph 26, this is in relation to if any form of attack was on the revelation, there would be his revelation, he would spring somewhere else. Okay, let's move on. Baha'u'lláh alludes to the high station of the true believer in the statement cited in paragraph 25. And however, the full measure of this station is concealed from humanity in this earthly life for their protection. In one of his tablets, Baha'u'lláh states, "We dare not in this day lift the veil that concealeth the exalted station which every true believer can attain. For the joy which such a revelation must provoke might well cause a few to faint away and die." Oh my gosh. Imagine that. Some people might be so lost in wonderment that they may be, prior Baha'u'lláh says they will be dumbfounded. But here in Gleanings from the Writings of Baha'u'lláh, he says, some might well cause a few to faint away and actually die. That's incredible, the station of a true believer. Becoming a true believer is a challenge and requires constant endeavor. And we looked at what does it take to endeavor as a true believer. And we studied Advent of Divine Justice, talking about this rectitude of conduct, chaste and holy life. These are all elements of a true believer. The recognition of the station of Baha'u'lláh is only the first step in the process. This requires obedience to his commands and complete submission to his will in tests and tribulations. Okay? So you can't just say, hey, I believe in Baha'u'lláh, and then say, or just, I signed my, Baha'i ID in 1957, and I'm a Baha'i, and I've been a Baha'i all these years. And then someone says, no Baha'i can ask another Baha'i, are you doing this or that or whatever, right? We don't do that. That's between you and your Lord, okay? That's the beautiful thing about the Baha'i faith. There's no one could ever ask you that. But in the end, the Baha'u'lláh will ask you in the end of days, because we will all be held accountable. Because if you say, I believe, he will in the end say, hey, you said I believe, so what are you doing? You're holding my name as a Baha'i. What have you done to hold my name? And then if you recall from our study in Advent of Divine Justice, only when you open your mouth will you receive confirmations. And when I say open your mouth, I'm talking about teaching the cause, proclaiming his message. So you have to be obedient to his commandments. And one of his commandments is teach the cause. So it's not just saying, I believe, it's also about doing, living, being active as a Baha'i. So it's not just saying the belief is the first step, but actually doing, believe, internalizing and bringing it to your external conditions is the next step. So that's why it's a challenge and it requires constant endeavor. Okay? Even in the face of tests and tribulations, because life is going to test us. And remember, if you remember from part 16 of Advent of Divine Justice, and if you don't remember, you can always go back to YouTube and watch part 16 of Advent of Divine Justice. It's on there. And in part 16, all the tests and tribulations are there for our spiritual growth, every one of them. And there's a quote in that session where Abdul Baha says, if you did not pass a test, it will come again. And it will come again until you have passed that test. Okay, so if you say, so that's is a quote from Abdul Baha. It's in that session where we were talking on tests and tribulations. Okay, so till you have passed that test, and then it will show up again in your life to that, because every one of them is for our own spiritual growth. Okay, moving on. The process is a spiritual journey through which the traveler must cling to the robe of obedience to all that have been enjoined and hold fast to the cord of shunning all that is forbidden, that he may partake of the cup of the law and be informed of the mysteries of truth. This is such beautiful language. Here coming from Baha'u'lláh, clinging to the robe, clinging to the hem. These are the terminology of Baha'u'lláh. And you can see this language in the long healing prayer, in clinging to the hem that have all clung. So this language here, clinging to the robe, is also throughout the Quran as well as the Hadith, and throughout the writings of Baha'u'lláh. And a wonderful Baha'i from California has done an incredible compilation on this clinging to the robe, and placed a whole compilation of all the sources Quranically as well as from the Baha'i writings on this. And I will send this to the class, okay, after tonight's session, because this is incredible, showing how many times this language of clinging to the robe is from the writings. And why I'm bringing this up is because as a Baha'i, this should be where we are. Where this hand is where we should perceive of our station. We should be in a state of prostration. We shouldn't be thinking that I'm at the same standing station as the manifestation of God. We should be in a state of absolute nothingness. That's really where we should consider ourselves, dust at his feet, and really clinging to his robe and clinging it, hold on to it. That is the covenant. That is the faith of God. Cling to his robe out of obedience to all that have been enjoined, and hold fast onto it. So this is, I will send that to you. It's an awesome compilation. I encourage you to read it and see all the citations. Okay, so I'll send that to you. Here's another awesome words coming from the Supreme Body as well as from His Holiness Abdul Baha. In this process, we need to let the power of God help recreate us, make us true Baha'is, in deed as well as in belief. Abdul Baha states that the Baha'is should justify their claim to be Baha'is by deeds and not by name. So we should justify our claim to be Baha'is. So if we say, I'm a Baha'i, it's not enough. You can't just say, I'm a Baha'i. What are you doing? What are you doing? If you're not doing anything, then you should reconsider the name, because in reality, you should justify your claim to be a Baha'i in deeds, not just name. This is then, he says, he identifies the characteristics of a true Baha'i. Here it is. This is from Abdul Baha. Characteristics of a true Baha'i. He is a true Baha'i who strives by day and by night to progress and advance along the path of human endeavor, whose most cherished desire is so to live and act as to enrich and illuminate the world, and whose source of inspiration is the essence of divine virtue, whose aim in life is so to conduct himself as to be the cause of infinite progress. And this is that awesome, awesome quote, from Abdu'l-Baha's Strive. You all know it's strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers, right? So this is there in reality. What does it take to be a Baha'i? It is the most beautiful appellation that anyone could have, Baha'i. To be a Baha'i. It is the highest honor and highest privilege. If you truly understood and looked at all the elements of what it means to be a Baha'i, it is the greatest honor, it is the greatest privilege, it is also the hardest thing to accomplish. It's the hardest thing to accomplish, but it is also the greatest honor. Because if you, as an individual, even live up to a fraction of what it means to Baha'i, you will make such an impact on not only your life, your family, your community, and the general external conditions of the world, because you, through your transformation, will impact such a change. Strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. Your actions will be prayers. Your name, people will laud your name. This is what it means to be a true Baha'i. This is, Abdu'l-Baha says that in this dispensation, true faith is no mere acknowledgement of the unity of God. It's not just acknowledging the unity of God, but rather the living of a life that will manifest all the perfections and virtues implied in such a belief. The process of transformation in the inner and outer lives of the individual is challenging and full of tests. The tests are either in the form of physical hardships and persecution, similar to the sufferings of the believers in Persia, or more likely, mental tests, which are very common at this time of the development of the Baha'i faith. And we can win these spiritual battles. We can win these when we have surrendered our will to the will of His Holiness Baha'u'lláh. This is what we're assured of. The believer can eventually attain the station of a true believer, which according to Abdu'l-Baha is the same as the one ordained for such prophets of the house of Israel. So this is an incredible station. This is the same station as the prophets of the house of Israel, is the station of a true believer. It's the highest station that you and I could attain, is the station of having the station of prophets of the house of Israel. All right, checking our time. Excellent. Okay, Riaz John, we're going into now the copiousness of his revelation. We've got about 10 minutes or so. Let's get into this part.
Copiousness of his revelation. This is from Baha'u'lláh in Epistle to the Son of the Wolf, page 115. In the statement cited in paragraph 26, Baha'u'lláh illustrates the unsurpassed character of his revelation. The beloved guardian highlights the significance of recognizing Baha'u'lláh and the intensity of his revelation. During his lifetime, Baha'u'lláh revealed an ocean of his utterances in the form of books, letters to individuals in reply to their questions, known as tablets, and prayers and meditations. Many of his writings are either in his own handwriting or dictated to his secretary and sealed by him. It is estimated that all the writings of Baha'u'lláh can be compiled into more than 100 volumes.
It's an incredible amount of writings. And on the right, it says Baha'u'lláh described the receiving of his revelation as a copious rain. And in his writings, he set out his prescription for the world to live in unity and peace. And this is in the archives. It says these are original scriptures of Baha'u'lláh in his own hand. These are kept in the archives building in Haifa. So more than 100 volumes of writings, tablets, epistles, exhortations, homilies, odes, poems, all different types of writings that Baha'u'lláh revealed with his own hand and spoken to his secretaries. So this is an incredible amount of revelation that has come, and we are so blessed to have it in original writing, as apart from past dispensations that they do not. So here's a copy. Baha'u'lláh would sometimes recite with such rapidity. I mean, poor Mirza Agha-Jan, the secretary, his amanuensis. I mean, the pen would be all over the place, right? With such rapidity that his secretary could barely keep up with the flow of his words. Afterwards, the secretary would occasionally be unable to read his own handwriting. This is coming from Revelation of Baha'u'lláh, Adib Tarzan. This is what he said. The poor Mirza Agha-Jan, my lord, I have no idea what I just wrote. Can you imagine? So he would hand it back to Baha'u'lláh, and then Baha'u'lláh would then write it, reveal it again in a language that was, per se, legible. So I find that so humorous. I mean, what an incredible speed the pouring of the revelation will come out. So this is a leaf from the Epistles to the Son of the Wolf in the Revelation handwriting of Mirza Agha-Jan. This is how fast it was pouring out, and if you read Persian, you could see just letters after letters are interlocked that it almost becomes unreadable. And you might be able to read one word here or there, but it just becomes a mishmash of words. Here's another one. This is another Revelation writing on the left. This is one sheet of Revelation writing by Mirza Agha-Jan. Only the first few words are sufficiently legible to identify the passage as the third tajalli of the tablet Tajalliyat. And this says, when the revelation came to Baha'u'lláh, this is from Adib Tarzan. When the revelation came to Baha'u'lláh, the word of God poured forth from his lips and was recorded by his amanuensis, or occasionally was written by himself. His words flowed with such rapidity that, as attested by himself in one of his tablets, his amanuensis was often incapable of recording them. I don't know how fast the words would come out of Baha'u'llah's mouth that you cannot write them. I mean, it must have been so overwhelming to be in the presence of your Lord, that to reveal something of such speed. I mean, so I just wanted to show some of these revelation writings and pull some of these so that you could see how this copiousness of his revelation was just pouring out. As Baha'u'lláh has attested in paragraph 26, the outpourings of his pen and the swiftness of his revelation have been unique in religious history. And in God Passes By, the beloved guardian Shoaib Effendi cites a number of statements from Baha'u'lláh on the copiousness of his revelation. And If you have not read God Passes By, put that on your book list for 2022, okay? 2022, get a copy of God Passes By. That is something that I encourage every one of you to read, because that will also give you a scope of the full measure of what happened during this heroic age, as well as the efflorescence of the faith from the passing of Abdu'l-Baha to 1944. So really the emergence of the crystallization of the institutions of the faith under the ministry of Abdu'l-Baha and the starting of the ministry of the Guardian. So really, it gives you a scope of the sufferings and really the tests and trials, tribulations that the Baha'is went through, but it's really about crisis and victory. This is what God Passes By is really about, crisis and victory. That, yeah, the faith went through so much hardship, but no, just like that quote from that Baha'u'lláh says, no, if you try to crush me in the, in the lands, I will appear in the heart of the ocean. And really, this is what God Passes By is really about. It's talking in very beautiful language of the beloved Guardian, talking about the crises that befell this faith really from 1844 all the way to really 1944. There were so many crises, even during the ministry of the Guardian, with the covenant breakers. It's one after another. But every setback propelled the name of the faith and caused the name of the faith to reach greater and greater heights. So that was my as they say, my soundbox, go read God Passes By 2022 kind of thing, okay? There we go. Shoaib Effendi cites a number of statements from Baha'u'lláh on the copiousness of his revelation. These are 4 that the beloved Guardian cites in God Passes By. Such are the outpourings from the clouds of divine bounty, that within the space of an hour, 1 hour, the equivalent of 1,000 verses hath been revealed. 1 hour, 1,000 verses were revealed. It'll be so amazing, and I know this is, we haven't got to be yet, but it'll be so amazing in the future manifestation of God. It'll be like in 1 hour, 4 terabytes of information were revealed or something, I don't know how they will measure this, because, it'll be very interesting, because we're in the information age, how much, will be revealed. So great is the grace vouchsafed in this day, that in a single day and night, were an amanuensis capable of accomplishing it to be found, the equivalent of the Persian bayan would be sent down from the heaven of divine holiness. And here again, I swear by God, in those days, the equivalent of all that have been sent down aforetime unto the prophets have been revealed. So all that have been revealed prior have been revealed in those days, the space of those days, the Baha'u'lláh. That which have already been revealed in this land, Adrianople, secretaries are incapable of transcribing. It has therefore remained for the most part untranscribed. He didn't even have enough secretaries to be able to capture what he wanted to reveal. It's incredible, the copiousness of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh. This is coming from the beloved Guardian, God Passes By. Here's another. This is through the movement of our pen of glory, we have at the bidding of the omnipotent ordainer breathed a new life into every human frame, and instilled into every word a fresh potency. All created things proclaim the evidences of this worldwide regeneration. The creative power of this word. Everything proclaims his name, whether you are aware of it or not. This is another incredible thing. Every human frame All right. And checking our time. Yeah, we're just hitting 8:30. So this will be our last slide. Checking. Yeah, we got a few more slides. Yeah, a few more slides, but this will be our last slide for tonight. Okay, and then we'll close it down. According to the beloved guardian, the pace of the revelation was particularly intense in Adrianople. An eyewitness explains the divine verses were raining down in such a number that it was impossible to record them. Mirza Agha Jan wrote them as they were dictated, while the most great branch, His Holiness Abdul Baha, was continually occupied in transcribing them. There was not a moment to spare. And according to Nabil, a number of secretaries were busy day and night, and yet they were unable to cope with the task. Among them were Mirza Baghar Shirazi. He alone transcribed no less than 2,000 verses every day. He labored during 6 or 7 months. Every month, the equivalent of several volumes would be transcribed by him and sent to Persia. About 20 volumes in his fine penmanship he left behind as a remembrance for Mirza Agha Jan. And this is from Deuteronomy. So it shows this copiousness of the revelation, the language. Let my teaching fall like rain. This is from the book of Deuteronomy in the Bible. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 2. So this is the similar language. Baha'u'llah's words, his creative word was just pouring. I mean, 6 to 7 hours every day. And the only one that could keep up and be able to transcribe them was Abdul Baha. No one could keep the pace of Baha'u'llah just pouring it out. So what an incredible outpouring of a revelation like that. So there we are, dear friends. We'll pick it up next week. Hope you enjoyed today's class. Any questions, thoughts, learnings? Please share. And then we'll have our closing prayer, as always.
It's all beautiful.
Thank you, dear Tesfai. Yes, it's so, to me, it's so awe-inspiring. Just overwhelming, the amount of revelation that has come. And there's relatively so little, in English that we have from the pen of Baha'u'llah. There's still so much untranslated, but the major works, the beloved guardian, as well as the supreme body have been translating through the research department. But the major works have already been translated, but there's still a lot of incredible letters and tablets, as well as poems and other things that are still yet to be translated authoritatively. And so I encourage you in your time to, as they say, dive deep into that ocean, and in the words of Ehsan from a past session, lap at that ocean, drink deep of it. Don't just, walk up to that ocean and say, hey, that's a really big ocean, Start drink deeply of it, have fun and enjoy it. Okay, so really that's it for tonight. Any other thoughts before we close?
In today's class we have to measure ourselves, how much we are deep in the phase and what we learned so far. After recognition of Baha'u'llah, we have to test ourselves in these risings today, the way I see it, how the revelation is deep and how we are blessed also to get the light of this revelation and to become Baha'i. It's not an easy thing.
That's right. Yeah, exactly, dear Tesfai. And if you got out anything from today's class, you should introspect, dive deep into yourself, reflect on yourself and say, I'm talking about myself, Ehsan. Am I, Ehsan, a true seeker? Am I a true believer? When I say, am I, and then fill in your name. Am I a true believer? If the answer is, I got work to do, then what more can you do in your daily habits? Think about what you are doing, and then think about that quote from the beloved Guardian when he wrote to the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States and Canada. And we read that in our study on Advent to Divine Justice. He called the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States and Canada. This is right before the launching of the 7-year plan. And what did he say? He says, I'm very proud of you. You guys are doing such an incredible job. Obviously, Esson is paraphrasing, right? But what he said, he said, I'm very proud of all your achievements. You're doing so good. But then he says, I want you to increase what you are doing 1,000-fold. Okay? So think about it, dear friends. That's really what it is. What are you doing, and how can you increase what you're doing? Okay, it is. Every day, what am I doing? And increase it. And that's what it means to be a Baha'i, because it really is, it's all about that. Anyway, let's have a closing prayer, and we're really so happy and honored to be in your presence, every one of you. Okay?
So one of the most important thing, in this revelation is, it is not about the only revelations, but it is about the unity of man. It's not about a religion. So we need to understand and spread this, and then teach the people of the earth as much as we can, because it's not about only religion. It's about the unity of man, the oneness of humanity. So it is to be revealed, and then you have to do all these things in connection with the religion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, dear Tesfaye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, who would like to share a closing prayer with us tonight? Oh, Miss Darla's hand is up. Thank you so much, Miss Darla.
O God, my God, this is thy radiant servant, thy spiritual thrall, who hath drawn nigh unto thee and approached thy presence. He hath turned his face unto thine, acknowledging thy oneness, confessing thy singleness, and he hath called out in thy name among the nations, and led the people to the streaming waters of thy mercy. O thou, the most generous Lord, to those who have asked, he is given to drink from the cup of guidance that brimmeth over with the wine of thy measureless grace. O Lord, assist him under all conditions. Cause him to learn thy well-guarded mysteries, and shower down upon him thy hidden pearls. Make of him a banner rippling from the castle summits in the winds of thy heavenly aid. Make of him a wellspring of crystal waters. O my forgiving Lord, light up the hearts with the rays of a lamp that sheddeth abroad its beams, disclosing to those among thy people whom thou hast bounteously favored the realities of all things. Verily, thou art the mighty, the powerful, the protector, the strong, the beneficent. Verily, thou art the Lord of all mercies.
Thank you, Miss Darla. Thank you very much to every one of you, and wishing you a wonderful week. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allow, Pop.
Everyone.
Thank you.